to be under the sea. Ain't an octopus got with you.
But it's 17 past 6 on the weekend show. It's also called breath hold diving or skin diving. But today with Marco Bordieri from the Sydney Underwater Gazette, we're going to be talking free diving, which gives you a chance to be close to sea life, have more complete underwater experience. Marco, how long can a person hold their breath for?
Good morning, Simon. It depends on individual capacity and also if you are still or making any effort. An average person can hold it for, let's say, 30 to 90 seconds. With training, it can last up to 3-4 minutes. But if you're using your muscles, like when you're free diving, those times are greatly reduced.
So is it true that Kate Winslet held her breath for 7 minutes during the making of Avatar 2?
It is true.
Wow.
Kate for 7 and the 72-year-old Sigourney Weaver for 6 during the making of the movie. But, first of all, they were standing still and not moving. So these times were taken as a preparation for the acting exercise underwater. But most of all, they've been cheating a little bit because they've been breathing poor oxygen before the exercise. It's true, but there is a bit of help. And on the Facebook page, the Sydney Underwater Gazette, you may find that there is an interesting article about this. Normally, the world records are 11 minutes for natural breath holding and 24 with oxygen assisted. So you can see there is quite a gain in that case.
But with caution, because you know what happens during breath holding because you had a blackout episode during a free diving exercise.
Yeah, that was a few years ago, actually, before I learned what I'm going to say now. So let's be clear how to be safe when you do this exercise. So what happens? During breath holding, the CO2 that cannot be expelled by the lungs accumulates in the blood. And at the same time, the oxygen level is depleted. So you got CO2 going up, oxygen going down. At some stage, the buildup of CO2 is sensed by the brain as an alarm. And that's the signal that we must stop breath holding before the oxygen reaches a critical low point. Now, the problem if a diver hyperventilates, basically if you perform deep and frequent breaths before starting the breath holding. And that's exactly the error, the mistake I did, because that may lead to the blackout. So in my case, what happened? When you make this deep breath before the exercise, basically you lower your CO2 levels before your breath holding. It's like turning your alarm off because you start breath holding, the CO2 increases, but because it was starting so low, it never gets the point to tell you, hey, you need to stop. While at the same time, the oxygen goes low. You don't sense the oxygen going low. You normally sense the CO2 going up.
Right.
So you go straight into blackout without any premonition.
And what happens during blackout?
Well, it's like sleeping, but you have no dreams. So you have no perception of the time passing because what happens? The body shuts down all the functions that are not vital in order to preserve the limited oxygen. So you are unconscious. You cannot see, talk, feel. You're fainting basically. But the heart is still beating and the blood with the remaining oxygen is still being pumped into the brain. But what happens next determines if you are going to live to tell or not. And what happens next is, well, in my case, I lost consciousness after 4 minutes of breath holding. I was spotted by a lifesaver because I was in a safe environment. I was in a pool. I was pulled out of the water, revived. Reviving means blowing air on your face, lapping a little bit to your face, and then you naturally resume breathing. And I have no recollection because one moment I was relaxed in the water doing my exercise, and 1 second after I was out of the water with everybody talking and looking at me. So
if that had happened in the ocean,
that's the opposite outcome. In that case, if you are without assistance because you are alone or you are with a buddy that is looking at something else, is not looking at you, what happens? You stay for some time in a blackout state with the mouth is shut and the heart is still pumping oxygen to the brain. But then you reach a point where the oxygen is depleted. There is the laryngospasm, which is what keeps your mouth shut, will relax. There is a terminal gasp, and eventually you aspire water and you drown.
So the moral of this story is?
So if you want to practice freediving, which is a wonderful activity, first of all, get some training so you are aware of the risk and you know how to manage those. But never dive without a buddy that is trained on safety protocols, knows how to do. And the other thing is, it's called one diver goes down, the other stays up. So if one is diving, the other one should not be diving, otherwise must be looking somewhere else. So one down, one up. And there are a couple of people that die every year that are classified as blackouts in Australia. But according to life saving, that's just the tip of the iceberg because drownings are often the result of being alone in the water. And they are not classified as consequence of blackouts because if you're by yourself, nobody was there, nobody can tell you were holding your breath.
Yeah.
So they are totally underreported. And this can happen everywhere, even in the house pool where kids play.
So don't allow kids to do that breathing hyperventilation before they try and swim a lap underwater either, because that sounds pretty dangerous as well. Marco Bordieri, this is all on the Sydney Underwater Gazette Facebook page. And for today, what is the diving going to be like?
It's going to be okay. The conditions are average. They are like 6 meters visibility across northern beaches, eastern suburbs, Cornell. Temperature is a pleasant 23 degrees. The swell is quite limited, so most of the sites are accessible. So definitely get in before it gets too cold in a coming month.
And enjoy the walk at the temperature because it has been quite warm. Marco Bordieri, you have a good weekend.
You too, Simon.
Marco Bordieri from the Sydney Underwater Gazette.